There's one. You see, it's not your fault, kids. Your parents refused to cooperate here in the nice little exercise we had. Okay. Anyway, thank you, big and small, for coming. Grown up and growing up for coming. So, we all know a lot's happened in the last few days. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes to discuss where Senate Democrats are on taxes, health care, government funding, and then take some questions. First, on taxes. The president's outline yesterday is a direct assault on the middle class and an expensive gift to the wealthiest Americans and the special interests. Just this morning, Secretary Mnuchin was asked to guarantee that the middle class would pay less under the Trump tax plan. He refused to do so. If on one piece of paper you can guarantee that the wealthy and the special interests will pay less, but can't guarantee that for the middle class, you're doing it all wrong. What President Trump unveiled yesterday is not the Trump tax plan. It is a plan to lower President Trump's taxes, the taxes of his cabinet, and people as wealthy as they are. It also represents another broken promise to American workers. He promised to lower taxes for the middle class. Can't guarantee that. He promised to close the carried interest loophole. This plan only makes it bigger. By allowing pass-throughs to be taxed at just 15%, he's guaranteeing that those with carried interest income will pay an even lower rate than they did now. When he said he was going to end the loophole altogether, instead he's making it wider. That's outrageous. I have never seen a tax plan that does more harm to the middle class and more to boost those at the top than the outline released yesterday. I guess it's not quite a plan yet. Let's hope we're not passing legislation on one page. This tax plan could also have devastating long-term consequences for Medicare, Social Security, and other benefits that Americans have worked to earn for years. The Trump tax breaks blow such a gigantic hole in our deficit, it could endanger Medicare and Social Security, which may well be the nefarious ultimate goal of the hard right. Because if Trump's tax plan were to pass, you can be sure that a few years down the road, the deficit will be so large that our Republican colleagues on the hard right will come to us and say, the deficit's so big, we have to reduce Medicare and Social Security. Now, the plan is a non-starter. For Senate Democrats, it's also going to be a non-starter with the American people. Second, on the House Republican effort to revive TrumpCare. This version is worse than the other version. So all the reasons people didn't like TrumpCare 1, they're going to dislike TrumpCare 2 even more. There's been a lot of focus on the changes, but the fundamental nastiness of the TrumpCare proposal, 24 million fewer covered, dramatically raising rates on people 50 to 64, are still in the bill. Even worse, TrumpCare 2 will allow states to decide whether or not insurers have to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. It's hard to come up with a crueler bill than the one that would have resulted in 24 million Americans not getting coverage. But this new TrumpCare manages to do it. It would hurt even more Americans, bring us back to the days when an insurance company could deny you coverage exactly when you need it the most. Back to the day when parents have a kid with cancer, the insurance company doesn't give them insurance, and they have to watch their child suffer because they can't afford the health care the kid needs. I say to moderate Republicans in the House, if you didn't like the first version, you sure shouldn't like this version. And frankly, you'll pay a huge price in the 2018 elections if you vote for it. We hope that the Republicans don't pass it because we know how many people it would hurt. But if they do, American politics will take its effect. Even if it passes the House, the chances for survival in the Senate are small. We don't even know if the new version would survive under the rules of reconciliation, the very fulcrum of the new compromise, allowing states to opt out. Seems pretty clear that it would be affected by the Byrd rule. It would violate the Byrd rule. And then they'd need 60 votes. They're not getting 60 votes to allow states to opt out. So a warning to those voting it in the House, this may be a chimera. All to save face for the president in the first 100 days. Because again, the very core of the compromise looks pretty clearly that it doesn't meet the Byrd rule. So, why would you risk voting yes for a bill that is devastating to your constituents and has no chance of becoming law? We Democrats have been making the case all week that the president has broken his promises to working class Americans. With these two plans, his tax bill and TrumpCare 2, he has made the case better than we ever could have. After 100 days and after these two bills, President Trump's promises to working people are in tatters. Lastly, on government funding, Democrats and the American people have welcomed the president's decision to back off his threats on both the wall and defunding health care. The president was insisting on these things that he knew were non-starters for Democrats. We remained unified, and the president has softened his stance. We welcome that cooperation. And over the last 24 hours, we've made a lot of good progress towards an agreement. Now, this should be a lesson for the administration. The tendency of this administration has been to go at it alone on health care. Looks like that's what they're doing on taxes. What the negotiations on the budget and appropriations bill show is that when the Trump administration takes into account the Democratic position and is willing to move in our direction, they can make progress on issues, as we have on appropriations bills. There are some sticking points that remain, but I'm optimistic that we can come up with an agreement very soon. The final product will be something that both sides can be proud of. It will help keep us safe at home and adequately fund the programs that our middle-class families rely on. Ready for your questions after I get a drink of water. I must have had something salty last night. Yes?
You said that you're making progress in the government shutdown, but I want to ask you about this threat coming from the House side. Your fellow Democrats, Steny Hoyer, threatening to not vote on the short-term CR
Look,
if they schedule a health care vote. Will Senate Democrats join that?
Look, I agree with Leader Pelosi and Leader Hoyer. The House ought to fund the government for a full year before rushing through a health care bill in the dark of night, without having a CBO score, without knowing its other effects. Plain and simple. They are right.
But does that mean that you'll tell your caucus to not?
We're not up to that yet.
House Speaker Ryan just said that TrumpCare 2, as you put it, actually gives people with pre-existing conditions more options because it allows states to set up high-risk pools.
Go look at these high-risk pools. They've closed down in state after state. They are usually so expensive that no one can afford health care. It's a fig leaf.
On tax reform, you say that this plan is a non-starter, but even if it was a starter, how long of a process is this? I mean, this is a plan for a plan, but how long?
Well, look, I think what happened here is the president got very worried about his 100 days. That, I think, was his motivation to push the wall into the appropriations process. That failed. So he's doing two things. He puts together this one-page tax plan so he can say he's doing something in 100 days, and he's pushing the House hard to pass TrumpCare 2. none of this is going to work. You do things in such a hurried and rushed way, you pay the price, all for a political goal. So I think in the long run, it's going to bedevil them.
Leader Chuck, you talked about the Trump tax plan being a non-starter. You've negotiated with Paul Ryan in the past on tax reform. You've talked to Rob Portman on tax reform principles. Given that the president's plan is going nowhere, would you move together on a bipartisan basis to push the plan, even though
We're always willing to try and work on a bipartisan basis. But what the president does, example of the tax bill, he doesn't consult us. And then he comes up with a plan that is loved by the special interests on the hard right and says support it. That's not the way it works.
Well, would you?
President Trump was on Twitter this morning complaining about Democrats and saying that you guys were threatening a shutdown. Is that out
Yeah.
of touch with where you guys are in the
Yeah, I think when I heard that the president said he is pushing for minors' benefits and we're blocking it. Joe Manchin, who talks to the president regularly, must have fallen out of bed. The whole push for minors has come from Democrats. It was resisted by Republicans for a long time, and now maybe they're going along. So it was out of touch with reality, that tweet. I haven't read all his other tweets.
He's saying that you guys that a shutdown is coming. Are you guys actually?
As we have shown, we have done everything we can to get something passed. We know that he's the president. Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate. If there's a shutdown, it falls on their shoulders. I think they know that.
Senator Schumer, you called the president's plan just moments ago direct assault on the middle class. Can you talk about specific provisions in there that you think would raise taxes on the middle class, other than the deficit possibility you talked about with Medicare and Social Security? And is the state
Well, they're going to take away a lot of deductions, like the state and local deduction.
for New York families? What would that mean for middle class?
According to the Syracuse Post-Standard this morning, it would mean an increase in taxes for middle-class families on the average of $4,500 per family. And the estate tax, how about that one? Guess how many estates get the estate tax every year? 5,200. These are the very, very, very wealthiest people in America. The average person would benefit, the average of these 5,200 would benefit $3 million each. And the president went far beyond what he talked about in his campaign on that as well. The whole thing is skewed to the very, very wealthy. Now look, God bless the very wealthy. I'm glad they have a lot of money. I respect self-made people, and in our American system, they deserve to make a lot of money. But they don't need their taxes reduced at a time when the middle class is struggling.
On this issue of the customer sharing payments, the healthcare insurers that has been potentially on the chopping block, what is the exact commitment you have from the administration to continue those payments into the future?
We expect they're going to continue them certainly for a long period of time. And the forces that force them to do it on their own are still there. They know that if 6 million people lose coverage because premiums would go way up, it's on their backs. They know that. They know that.
When you talk about good progress toward an agreement, are you some of these riders you've been alluding to and complaining about, are they melting away?
Okay, good. I'm glad you asked that question, Taylor. Are you a little Taylor, by the way? Would you like to ask a question?
Or do you just sort of see how they're going to fall? And then secondly, what is getting a final product very soon?
Well, look, first, we have stood by, we've made clear our position, like we did No Wall a month ago. Our position is no poison pill riders. The kind of riders that, would deal with women's health, that would roll back the protections average folks have in Dodd-Frank against financial interests. These kinds of things do not belong in this bill. We're happy to debate any of these openly in regular order. The problem is the things they try to push in here are unpopular with the American people, so they don't want to debate. And so we say no poison pill riders. Now, we're making progress. We're not there yet. But once the wall was taken out and the cost sharing was taken out, I think there's been a real desire. I give Leader McConnell credit I think he had a real desire to get this done. And unfortunately, the president stood in the way for quite a long time. So that's why we're a little delayed. Last one.
Going back to what House Democrats are fighting right now in terms of funding for CR if Obamacare goes to the floor in the next 3 days, are you saying that you are ready to stand with them on the vote?
As I have said, I've said that Speaker Pelosi is right. Instead of rushing through health care, they first ought to get the government funded for a full year, plain and simple.
Do you see Obamacare vote as a poison pill at this point?
Well, look, we're not. Let's hope they see the light over there in the House.
Can you comment on Michael
Nope.
Flynn, the General Flynn investigation that coming?
Well, look, there are so many questions about General Flynn, and we ought to get to the bottom of every one of them. Every week there seem to be new questions about his honesty, his veracity, and his compliance with the law. Thank you, everybody.